Ukrainian officials say at least 10 people were killed and 44 wounded in a Russian missile attack on the city of Odessa Monday. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says the strikes targeted a residential neighborhood, including an apartment building. The attack comes one day after President Biden authorized Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory using U.S.-supplied weapons. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams has more from Western Ukraine.
Ukraine's been using American-supplied ATACMS against Russian forces since last year. Some of the missiles have a range of close to 200 miles. But before now, the US had refused the Ukrainians permission to hit targets inside Russia, concerned about an escalation in the conflict. Colonel Maxim Balagura of Ukraine's State Border Guard hinted last month about what the Ukrainians could attack with the powerful US weapons.
If the US would allow you to use ATACMS to hit Russia, what difference would that make?
If the Russians don't have any ammunition or any planes, then manpower won't matter, he told us. In recent months, Russian forces have been gaining ground and targeting Ukraine cities with deadly glide bombs, Soviet-era ammunition retrofitted with wings and GPS. Last month, we witnessed the aftermath of a small glide bomb in this residential neighbourhood.
You can see the devastation that it's wreaked. It's literally ripped the front off the building.
And now Russia's military's been bolstered by more than 10,000 North Korean soldiers. They may join an offensive to retake territory in Kursk in southern Russia, where Ukraine launched an audacious incursion in August. In September, Vladimir Putin said that if the US allowed Ukraine to use ATACMS inside his country, it would mean that America and Russia are at war.
Some Ukrainians fear that President-elect Donald Trump could try to pressure their government into negotiating with Russia. If that happens, using the ATACMS now could give Ukraine a better bargaining position. Holly Williams, CBS News, Lviv, Ukraine.
For more on what's happening overseas, let's bring in Ian Bremmer. He's the president and founder of the Eurasia Group and G0 Media. Ian, thanks for being here. Let's start with Ukraine. How do you expect U.S. policy to change under President-elect Trump, including this issue of long-range weapons and overall funding and the supply of U.S. weapons?
The long-range weapons, very easy to turn that off if the Trump administration no longer provides the intelligence to help the Ukrainians with targeting. Then those ATACMS aren't going to matter very much. And by the way, they're not going to make a strategic difference in the war, which is one of the reasons Biden took so long to actually approve it. More broadly, it's hard to imagine the Ukrainians continuing to get the level of military support from the U.S. that they have heretofore. And that's why President Zelensky, in the last 24 hours, has said publicly that he expects that it's more likely the war will be over soon under the policies of President-elect Trump. He certainly was not saying that 3 weeks ago before the election. So a lot more pressure to have a ceasefire. Whether or not that ceasefire is something the Europeans can live with, Zelensky can live with, that's an open question at this point. We'll see what happens when Trump talks to Putin.
Question about something that you mentioned off the top. You said that these long-range missiles are not going to make a strategic difference in the war, and that is why Biden waited until now to approve them. Then why approve them and risk the ire of Putin, who is essentially threatening World War III potentially over the use of these weapons?
Well, one, because nobody really buys that Putin's threatening World War III, especially since Trump is coming in only a couple months. Secondly, this is a response to a Russian escalation. The Americans had warned the Russians, don't send other troops into the front. And then the North Koreans, despite that, send over 10,000 to fight for the Russians on the front lines against Ukrainians. So this was an American response, not a very effective one, but it is an escalation in response to what the Russians have done.
Over the weekend, we know President Biden met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. They discussed how to manage competition responsibly and prevent it from veering into conflict or confrontation. Can that still be done with an incoming president, Secretary of State, and bipartisan lawmakers who are very vocally critical of China?
It's harder, but certainly the Chinese, who are presently experiencing the worst economic slowdown they've had since the 90s, maybe since the 70s, are more inclined to try to cut a deal. And behind the scenes, they've been talking about what they might offer to an incoming Trump administration to try to stop the Americans from putting 60% tariffs on, to begin negotiations. They've talked about buying more American goods, maybe having BYD set up factories for American workers for electric vehicles in the United States, buy more treasuries, maybe do a peace conference coordinating with the Americans on Ukraine. I mean, this is a Chinese administration that is worried about what might happen if a gloves-off Trump administration comes in and hits them hard economically. If that happens, they will respond with further tariffs. This will hurt American consumers, but the Chinese are more worried than the Americans are right now.
Before we let you go, in China's readout of the meeting with Biden, she apparently said Taiwan, democracy, and human rights were all red lines and must not be challenged. Aren't those also red lines for the U.S.?
Well, for the Trump administration, human rights isn't much of a red line. Democracy isn't much of a red line. Taiwan probably is a red line, certainly is for many of Trump's appointees. Not clear it is for Trump. Look, one of the most interesting things about the world right now, for 50 years, the Americans have been telling the Chinese, you need to have a more American foreign policy. You need to be responsible stakeholders, support more democracy, rule of law, common values, all of that. They didn't do that. Turns out American foreign policy is becoming more Chinese. It's becoming more transactional, less about common values, less about human rights, less about multilateralism, and more about transactional relations. One country, the U.S., more powerful than others in a room. That's interesting. Whether or not that makes the Chinese comfortable is a very open question.
Ian Bremmer, thank you.